One of the most active days of the offseason started with a presser. Then we got news the Texans got a new tackle. There's a lot to get into. There was also a visit sprinkled in there with one of the most popular names on the market that could be available at number 25. May have to do some moving to get him. It is SNL, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you live every day at 4 o'clock. Let's just jump right into it. We had the show laid out, and then I'll be damned, the Texans signed Cam Robinson. Takeaways from the Cam Robinson deal, what it means, where they go, how it impacts the draft. We'll cover it all here on SNL. Take it away, though, Stoots.
Don't love it. Don't love it. This is a guy that has been a disappointment in his NFL career. He's never lived up to the expectations that I feel like people had for him. Even when the expectations got adjusted a little bit, he still didn't live up to them. Jacksonville was constantly trying to replace him. They did a bad job at it, so they kind of got stuck with him a little bit longer than I feel like most teams would have ended up getting stuck with a guy like Cam Robinson. And he's coming off one of his worst years of his career. This guy allowed a career high in sacks and a career high in hurries, according to Pro Football Focus this past season. That was with two different teams. That was with Minnesota to finish the year, with Jacksonville to start the year. And look, part of this is this guy's been in Jacksonville. They've been a disaster. So you can point to some of that, but he was worse in Minnesota. Like he wasn't very good for the Vikings when they snagged him middle of the year to replace Christian Darrisaw, who got hurt, and they needed a left tackle. And Minnesota traded for him, and he was okay sometimes, bad a lot of times. And that's kind of been Cam Robinson's career. And with the financial investment they made in him, looks like he's got the inside track with a big lead to be the left tackle for this team. I'd be foolish to sit here and tell you today he's for sure unquestioned the left tackle, but he's got the inside track and he's got a lead over those other guys that would be the left tackle option.
Well, here's my thing. I get everything you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with it, but I like this a lot more than just relying on Tytus Howard to be one of your starting tackles. And it seemed like that was becoming a little bit too widely accepted, even by you almost. Like it almost felt like you weren't like freaking out about Tytus Howard potentially starting at tackle. And I started to feel like I was kind of in la-la land for a while because I just didn't see how that could be plan A and how they could be comfortable with that. And I think that's what this says. Like, I don't think Cam Robinson's great. I think Cam Robinson can be a stopgap. I think we're somewhere between Matt Khalil and Laramie Tunsil as far as the last time they found themselves in this situation. I don't think he's washed up like Matt Khalil was when they tried it. And he's obviously not what Laramie Tunsil was, but the cost was a lot higher. But somewhere in between the money Tunsil ended up getting and what Matt Khalil got, you find Cam Robinson. And I get what you're saying. I'm not disputing it. I'm not sitting here saying that they're going to have one of the best left tackles in the league. Matter of fact, I think DJ Bieniemy just said he had like the 5th most pressures allowed at the left tackle position last year per Next Gen Stats. But I feel much more comfortable about this than just throwing Tytus Howard back out there at one of the starting tackle positions. So as much as I still acknowledge that the offensive line is a problem, I think it's a better option than just saying, hey, Tytus Howard, we've seen you play the last few years. We thought you were going to be a guard, but hey, Laramie's gone. So now you're just a tackle. Like, I feel more comfortable with Cam Robinson, Tytus, and Fisher, if Tytus is still a part of things, than I do without Cam Robinson.
Yeah, my thing would be look, there was no situation, and there's still not, where you're going to be comfortable with the offensive line. I just believed that you could have done something different by letting Tytus Howard play left tackle with the money than what they did with Cam Robinson. I mean, $13 million, $12 million on Cam Robinson. Cam Robinson at left tackle and Ed Ingram and Tytus Howard at guard, or Tytus Howard at left tackle, Kevin Zeitler at right guard, and Laken Tomlinson at left guard. I feel like you could have done something different with this money. Like that's the big thing with the Cam Robinson investment. I'm not going to disagree with you that Cam Robinson is likely a better left tackle than Tytus Howard. They clearly believe that because that's the move that they've made. I have no idea about left tackle Tytus Howard. And I also would tell you that there's a chance
you have a decent idea though. Like you've seen the guy play. Like you have a decent idea of how it goes if Tytus Howard lines up at left tackle.
Yeah, but Tytus Howard's better at right tackle than Cam Robinson's been at left tackle, if that's what we're comparing.
By how much?
Enough that I wouldn't have spent $13 million on Cam Robinson. By that much.
The other thing that I think is interesting is I don't know what their plan is now with, like, are we having a 3-way battle at tackle? Is that where it's heading? Is it a 3-way battle? Do they have some sort of vision of how this offensive line looks? That's the other thing. Like, what does this? What is
backup?
this?
$12 million backup be pretty freaking stupid.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. But what if he gets beat out? Like if he gets beat out, are we just like sticking Cam Robinson at left tackle and that's the end of it? Is there going to be some sort of rotation? I don't know. I agree with you. That does feel a lot like a starting tackle. I just don't know. Do you think? Let me put it this way: do you think that they have enough confidence in Cam Robinson to where, whenever they traded Landry Tunsil a weekish ago, that was where the direction they were going to go? Like, do you think there was proactive planning here? Or do you think that they traded Landry Tunsil? They entertained the possibility of Tytus Howard, because this is how it is when we hear the news. They entertain the possibility of Tytus Howard being a tackle, and then they said, well, you know what? Let's go to Cam Robinson. I almost wonder if, for better or worse, this was what they envisioned when they traded Landry Tunsil, because it was a name that came up. I've heard you mention it a few times.
He of the tackles that you would have signed to play right away, he was the only name. I just don't believe he's very good at football. Like that'd be my biggest element. And at $12 million, there must have been some other bidders. And of course, you know, that's part of free agency. Guys get overpaid. It's kind of the going rate for overpaid tackles to get a little bit more money than you're more comfortable with. And it's not like this keeps them from doing something else the rest of the offseason. And it's only a 1-year commitment. So if he's not any good, you move on from him, which was the same thing that I was saying about Tytus Howard at left tackle. If he played left tackle this year and he's not any good, you move on from him. So you could still be in the same position. What I'm trying to figure out is, how does Tytus Howard fit into the equation? And is there any scenario where Blake Fisher's actually the odd man out?
I just don't see that. I could see Tytus Howard getting cut like once camp starts. We'll talk about how this impacts the draft. We actually had set up an AFC South first 3-round mock draft that we'll get to. Now it's a different element. Now it's even more exciting of an exercise because there's Cam Robinson's there. How does that impact it? We'll go through that simulation. Also, I think Nick Caserio's got a different role. But here's the other thing that I want to make clear, and I want to preface this. There is no unconditional trust in this organization. There is no blind faith. So when I say, or when I present the question, did they proactively believe that they were going to go get Cam Robinson? That doesn't necessarily mean, if the answer is yes, that it's a good thing. Like that doesn't. So I just wonder what their line of thinking is. There's no blind faith to where if this was a plan, that means that this plan's going to be perfectly executed and go well. That's one thing I do want to make clear when we're talking about this.
Oh, they've earned eternal skepticism until something turns around with this offensive line. We should all be diligent in our skepticism of anything that they do with the offensive line. Even if they go into this draft here next month, 5 weeks from tomorrow, even if they go in there and rattle off a couple of picks and we love the offensive linemen that they draft, still should come with a large amount of skepticism because of the way this organization has handled the offensive line since Nick Caserio took over.
I do have a nobody's talking about that I want to bring to the forefront in a sec. But first, let's swarm to the super chat here on SNL. Landry Locker, Cody Stoots reacting live to the Cam Robinson signing, and a very active day, one of the more active days of the offseason when it comes to the Houston Texans. You ain't never hate. Swarm. All right, Shane says, I'm all for signing pieces to our OL room, build up a competition, and at least make you feel that whoever is the starting 5 come week 1 was generally the best 5 we could have put out there. So The best 5, we hear that a lot. A lot of times we kind of roll our eyes at it, but maybe that's just kind of what they're doing. Maybe they're just putting a lot of options out there, and they'll try to figure something out. But again, the money does lean towards Cam Robinson's one of your starting tackles. I do agree with that.
I mean, I'm not opposed to giving Tytus Howard an opportunity, and if he beats out Cam Robinson, okay, well, you spent the money. He's a $13 million backup, $12 million backup, whatever. Like, we'll look back and say, yeah, probably pretty weird way to spend $12 million bucks. But I'm not opposed to just putting the 5 best guys out there, regardless of who they are. It just feels like Cam Robinson's got a pretty good head start at that left tackle spot. Does Tytus even get to compete at left tackle, or is Tytus Howard competing at right tackle and competing at left guard in training camp? Is Tytus Howard getting to training camp? Like, that's not a foregone conclusion. We've still got 4.5 months to get to training camp. So, some teams disappointed with how their draft shakes out. They want to send you a late round pick for Tytus after the draft's over. You do it. I'm not beholden to any of these guys.
Coming up in a sec, did the Texans sign a poor man's Laramie Tunsil? There's some noise coming out of another potential destination for Cam Robinson that says the answer to that is yes. Plus, I got this nobody's talking about that maybe we got a clearer picture of what's going on with Nick Caley. We'll get to that in a sec, but let's continue to swarm the soup. Jeremiah Chavez says, $1 says game 1, left tackle Tytus Howard, right tackle Cam Robinson, Fisher swing. Don't want, just saying. So not a hope, but just a prediction.
I don't believe there's any scenario where
I could see Fisher at left tackle and Robinson at right, maybe.
I don't believe there's any scenario where Cam Robinson's playing football for the Houston Texans and he's not playing left tackle. He's either on the bench or playing left tackle. That's my thought.
Danny says at least signing Cam doesn't make us one-dimensional in the first round of the NFL draft. We can get a weapon for CJ, plus Golden had a visit today.
Yeah. It does open some things up. I mean, you would still, like we've talked about Kelvin Banks from Texas, you'd still draft him if he was there at 25. 1, because you could play him right away at a different position. And 2, you have no future at tackle outside of Fisher. You can't count on Tytus Howard or Cam Robinson in 2026. So if you do get a player that can play right away at guard and then bump to tackle, you still take that player. But it does add some focus to the position that they're shooting for there in that first round.
Yeah, I think at the very least, like at the bare minimum, it doesn't prevent you from reaching. It prevents you from reaching for a tackle, like feeling too desperate. But I'm with you. Like if you see a tackle of the future, then it shouldn't stop you. Like if your top tackle's there, you take him.
Yeah.
And we'll do the simulation in a sec. Henry Rose says one thing is certain at the move, plus hopefully O-line in the draft gives them a lot of configuration options, which is something they had none of last year. So no alternate options is what he's talking about last year.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't the move in positions guys is not necessarily anything you wanted to see last year. Like I didn't want to see Juice Scruggs not play center. I didn't want to see Tytus Howard play left guard, although it did put Blake Fisher on the field. So look, they've got you guaranteed it. What was it, into last week? You guaranteed it. There'd be competition on this team when it comes to the offensive line. Well, if you want Tytus Howard to compete at left tackle, boom, Cam Robinson's there to compete or hold on to a spot, and Howard's there to compete with him. Tytus Howard can compete at left guard. You got 2 centers on the roster right now. You got a right guard on the roster right now with some guys who have been in the building already. Plus, you're going to add guys in the draft, and you got Blake Fisher. Maybe he's got to hold off Tytus. Like, you got competition. They handed 5 guys a starting job last year. Doesn't seem like they're doing that this year.
Appreciate Henry on the soup. Jake Johnson says, is Cody finally on board with wide receiver over offensive line in the first?
I was never not on board with that. I mean, there were a lot of offensive linemen that made sense at 25. There's a few wide receivers that make sense at 25. I would tell you, based on the depth of wide receivers that I'm comfortable with versus O-linemen I'm comfortable with, I was still very much wide receiver at 25.
All right, so Did they sign a poor man's Laramie Tunsil? Mike Giardi from the Boston Journal put this out. He said that the Patriots never did the LT dance with Cam Robinson, who signed with the Texans earlier today. Questions about football character and beyond. They have a good inside source. New offensive line coach Doug Marrone was part of the group that drafted him in Jacksonville. Close quote. They also have the option of getting the best in the top left tackle in the draft. So it's a little bit different situation. Like if they were drafting at 25 and they had what the Texans had, maybe that comes into it. But that's what Giardi says about the Patriots. The Patriots' alleged interest.
I would also say there's probably a lot of guys that played in Jacksonville that don't know how to act like a pro based on the fact that organization's been a dumpster fire for most of the time it's existed. So if you had some idea of how it went for him in Minnesota from a behind the scenes standpoint, like, okay, I'd be interested in hearing that. And then they clearly believe that the drill sergeant Cole Popovich is going to have all these guys in line, ready to go. So they're not worried about, they want 5 guys that can go out there and just blood, sweat, and tears on the field. And, maybe you've motivated Cam Robinson to do that if he wasn't previously doing that. I wouldn't have been sacrificing my body for Jacksonville back in the day. That place has sucked for years.
So we've seen the Texans twice go to Minnesota. Multiple times for offensive linemen, disappointing offensive linemen by many standards. I do wonder if this is kind of a hint and maybe one of the bigger hints as to what kind of offense Nick Caley's going to run, because O'Connell comes from the Rams, kind of runs the same type of offense. We saw Caley with the Rams a couple times. They said this was a hybrid. We've also seen some New England stuff here or there with the coaching staff and whatnot. But I do wonder if offensively we're looking at kind of a Rams O'Connell / McVay type of blocking scheme, because they've gotten 2 guys who many in the numbers back up aren't very good, but maybe systematically they like these types of guys because this is the type of system we're going to get. I do think this is a little bit of a context clue. I
feel like you're on the right track, but I feel like you didn't arrive at the correct conclusion. I think they got those guys that stunk in that system because they're going to run a different system that they think those guys will play better in. Ed Ingram wasn't good running Kevin O'Connell's offense. Cam Robinson wasn't good for the 8 games or whatever he was in Minnesota and Kevin O'Connell's offense. The Texans bring them down here, and maybe they're not going to run a Kevin O'Connell style. They're not going to run as much from that McVay side of the tree and a little bit more from the McDaniels Patriots side.
Chance on the soup says, looking at the draft, why do we need to invest early in a third wide receiver? No good team on offense has needed 3 heavy investments at wide receiver: Lions, Eagles, Chiefs, Bills, etc. Tight end is the real need in the draft.
All right, take Colston Loveland at 25. I don't give a damn. You definitely need more pass catching options because Nico Collins has an injury history. Christian Kirk has an injury history. And a lot of teams are successful throwing the ball primarily to 1 or 2 guys out of 3 wide receiver sets. The Rams are the perfect example. They run a lot of 3 wide receiver stuff. It benefits 2 pass catchers primarily. I mean, the Bengals are another team. They run a lot of 3 wide receiver stuff. It benefits 2 pass catchers primarily.
I actually kind of disagree with this premise too, because I mean, Kansas City's invested in wide receiver. I mean, they had Rice. They used a 1st-round pick on Xavier Worthy. They paid Hollywood Brown the 1 year, whatever it was, $10 million deal. Like, they've tried. Buffalo, they traded for Diggs. They had Beasley. They drafted Shakir. They traded for Amari Cooper. Like, those teams have good tight ends that he mentioned, but I don't think it's there might have been opportunity for them to get tight ends, but I don't think that they like lightly invested in wide receiver. I mean, the Eagles traded a first-round pick for A.J. Brown and then drafted Devontae Smith in the top 12 or whatever it was of the draft. And
Lions moved up for Jamison Williams after they had Amon-Ra.
They also drafted Jalen Reagor before that. Like, you might miss, but I think a lot of teams would love to have 3 wide receivers. It's not like the Chiefs have just passed on, and the Eagles and all these teams have just passed on third wide receiver. I think you're kind of taking rare examples and kind of taking advantage of opportunities more so than like some sort of calculated, premeditated investment in wide receiver 3.
The Bills have been swinging at wide receiver for 3 seasons now. Keon Coleman in the first round. They signed Curtis Samuel. Khalil Shakur's been on their team. They traded for Amari Cooper. They've tried to there was another trade that they were in on. They didn't get the guy. Like, they've been swinging at wide receiver, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get it, you can get it. But yeah, if you told me you can get a Travis Kelce or, the duo that the Bills have at tight end, that might change a little bit. But yeah, I don't think that there's like some investment formula for that the Texans need to follow there.
And we're probably the first 2 people that cover this team that told you about Colston Loveland, the Michigan tight end. So, I'm not opposed to spending that 25th overall pick on the Michigan tight end.
No, not at all. And I think this does, like, at the very least, I think this does kind of allow that flexibility. For better or worse. I mean, this is a 1-year stopgap plan. This is like somewhere between Julian Davenport and, I don't know, like Laramie Tunsil, maybe like way, way, way far away from Laramie Tunsil, but that's just kind of what this is.
Yeah, this is remember when they couldn't figure out, they had to keep throwing money at right guard or left guard, whatever, Jeff Smith and Zach Fulton. This is a more expensive version of those guys at tackle.
Yeah, he's not good, but Tytus is not good either. So I'm at the very least happy that they were not going to go into training camp and say, Tytus Howard is our starting left tackle. That, to me, would have felt as close to the Matt Khalil experience as we could have possisly gotten.
I just don't. I just don't know where Tytus fits now. Is he going to be a left guard? Is he going to be the swing tackle? The rumor that they adjusted his contract, then went out there and spent it on a left tackle. That's a big middle finger, ain't it? I mean, I hope that motivates Tytus Howard. Hey, can we get a little? Can we adjust your contract a little bit, change some things up? Yeah, sure. All right, yeah, I just brought a guy in to replace you. What? It's like asking for an open relationship. She answers real fast. You're like, did you have somebody in mind? What's going on here?
Yeah, I don't know how this affects Tytus. I don't know what happens with Tytus. I'm just pleased that they, like, with everything you've seen from him the last couple of years, it just doesn't seem like, hey, we trust you to be a tackle is like the way to go. Like, hey, here you go, Tytus. Come save the day at tackle. Maybe he's the most expensive swing offensive lineman there is. Who knows? I don't know. But the Tytus comeback season, I would love it, but I would not bet on it.
It is interesting because they're going to, let's say Tytus Howard's one of the best guard options when this is all said and done at the end of training camp. Someone's going to have to either be a backup that they brought in, either Laken Tomlinson or Ed Ingram. And let's say, okay, they're going to give Tytus a shot at left guard. Well, Laken Tomlinson's been a left guard for most of his career. Is he just going to go play right guard? Is Tomlinson just a $5 million backup? Like, they have options. And last year, offensive line, we just watched to see how good they were. This year, we got to watch to see who's in there and how good they are when it comes to training camp.
Yeah. And someone on the chat says, yeah, Tytus is better than Khalil. Yeah, I agree. But I think bringing Tytus in and saying, I feel good, like going into training camp saying, I feel good about Tytus Howard being one of my top tackles. It's Matt Khalil-like. Like, it's another version. It might be worse because you've seen it right in front of your eyes. It's not like he's coming off an injury. He doesn't have some Pro Bowl season that you can point to. Like, I think it would be Matt Khalil like. Obviously, he's further. Matt Khalil could barely walk. Like, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, going into camp saying this guy can be your tackle, that's why you end up overpaying for Laramie Tunsil. That's why you end up having him having you buy the balls and you trading the 2 first and the second that you did for him.
2 days ago, we talked about you've got to continue to add options, even at offensive tackle. So they did. They added a starter basically and made Tytus an option. He's an option for right tackle. He's an option for left guard. He's an option for swing tackle.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
H-Down94 on the soup says, trade our first pick and feast on day 2. Hey, I'm all for a day 2 feast when it comes to Caserio and D'Amico. Don't threaten me with a good time.
Sign me up for that. I mean, we can go get a wide receiver. We can go get a guard that Cody likes. Go get a defensive player that D'Amico likes. Do all sorts of things.
Evan says left tackle draft pick incoming.
I do believe that if you were the Texans and you're going through the draft and you're sitting there and it's day 3 and you're like, this guy's a mega project, but we could see it. Maybe him being a left tackle one day. Take that swing. Let that guy come in, be a project, know that he's not going to play in 2025 unless there's dire circumstances, and just hope that maybe he could grow into that role in a couple of years.
Evan McGinley says, move Tytus to right guard, ship Scruggs.
I mean, Juice is going to compete at center, you would think, with Jarrett Patterson. Perhaps the loser of that battle is a guard option. Perhaps not. Again, options.
ESG Soccer says this is telling Tytus to get off Twitch. Is he a Twitcher? Is Tytus a big Twitch guy?
No Twitch, no Twitter, no Instagram.
Desserts.
They're signing $12 million tackles to take my spot.
Desserts, maybe.
I got no treats. I got no Twitch. I got no Twitter. They're signing Cam Robinson to take my spot.
Tytus just switched his services. Like he's off X and he's now spending the time on Twitch. So we've talked about how it works with impacts Tytus. How does it affect Blake Fisher? I mean, I don't know that it does at all.
The only way this affects Blake Fisher is if they feel like they're comfortable with Tytus Howard at right tackle and Fisher's still developing for a year.
I'll just say this though, and I'm just being completely honest. And this might be unfair because I think between 3 and 4 years is where you get the real good grasp of what players are as far as like how their rookie era will go. There's exceptions to everything, but like with Stingley, elite, like there were still question marks, but elite. And I think CJ and Bryce are kind of going back and forth right now, but I digress. If Blake Fisher can't beat out Tytus Howard at tackle, I think that's a little bit concerning when it comes to this guy being one of your future tackles.
Sure.
Like if you can't beat out Tytus Howard at tackle and you're Blake Fisher, and I'm not even saying that Blake Fisher has to be immediately ready for Tytus Howard. Like if Tytus Howard is like, let's say he's here and Blake Fisher's right here, I would still rather go with Blake Fisher because you have him under control for a few years. He hasn't really gone through the growing pains. I think he has the makeup that they like, but it can admittedly be an overreaction. It's not a set in stone type of thing. But if Blake Fisher can't beat out Tytus Howard, that kind of sucks to me.
Oh, that would be a wasted second round pick then.
Unless he just emerges into being something great. But I just think you should be ready to be better than what Tytus Howard has been at tackle. And again, this is past tense. Maybe in the future, Tytus Howard comes in here and he's some ass kicker. And there's some sort of like revitalization. But all I have to judge is what I've seen from Tytus Howard, and he has done nothing to gain my blind faith. What I've seen, what they use to acquire Blake Fisher, the actions that they've shown that would hint that they trust Blake Fisher to be one of those tackles. If Tytus Howard beats him out, that's concerning for me.
I would also say anybody having the thought, Nick Caserio's words should ring true. They didn't view Blake Fisher as a guard or a guard option when they drafted him. And so I would tell you that that's also not an option for him. He's going to be a tackle or he's going to be on the bench, it seems.
Yes. Yes. Wags on the soup. Thoughts on Howard saying he is a tackle and not a guard. Now he's changed that a little bit.
I gave him the opportunity to double down on that in the last day in the locker room.
And he backed off.
He
backed off. You asked him. You said, hey, you've said it in the past. He said, I'll do whatever's best for the team. He was on his Twitter account, just a tackle. And then, and now he's just kind of willing to do whatever's best for the team. So that's kind of changed a little bit. Evan back on the soup says, got to give credit, though. Great depth being added.
Great is a strong word.
Great is strong.
Great's a strong word. That's like saying I have great self-control when I go to the buffet.
Sometimes you can. You know,
I've never had self-control at a buffet.
You never gone to a Chinese buffet and like get the soup and just the grilled stuff and maybe put some sauce on instead of going with the fried? You get like the grilled chicken and you just put, it's still not great for you, but you put some of the orange chicken sauce or the sweet and sour sauce on there and then just eat like the grilled stuff and get some soup. You can do that.
I have never done that. I know you have more self-control than I do.
In some ways, in some ways, I'm developing better self-control. I will say that. ESG Soccer back on the soup says we need to pray Kaylee can evaluate offensive line talent. We need to pray that Kaylee can coach up offensive line talent. Like evaluate, yeah, that would be nice too, but definitely coach up. I think that would be the best thing.
I mean, I don't know if anybody heard Dante Scarnecchia Jr. is the offensive line coach. Cole Popovich, the disciple.
What am I doing at the buffet and eating, grubbing?
It's a hypothetical.
It's a hypo.
Is there a style of buffet that does not currently exist that you wish existed?
I've said there's not enough pizza buffet options, which is kind of a shame, but it just seems like the delivery pizza option is just kind of taken over. Like a type of buffet, like without being too crazy, there used to be a place in Lubbock called Whistling Dixie, and it was all barbecue. It was like $12 and it was pretty good. Like I would say it, like, I'm not going to sit here and say it was like Truth Barbecue, but I would say it was like kind of like a cross between, I would say Papa's Barbecue and like Dickie's Barbecue, like somewhere in between that.
And it was an all you can eat buffet?
$12. And it was like multiple sausages, ribs, like some cheap ass steaks, chicken, turkey, all that. And they had like multiple cheesecakes, all like sides, all that. It was like $12. And they ended up going out of business. But every time we would be on that
high grade marijuana called Kush on the streets,
we would probably watch till like after the 2:30 kick college football. And then we go to Whistling Dixie, eat, and then we go watch the nighters. But yeah, I would say barbecue buffets, but barbecue is just too damn expensive, so it's almost impossible.
Okay, so I as you talk about this, I believe a barbecue buffet could work.
It's high,
but it's gonna be expensive.
High,
and to get brisket or like beef ribs, it's an upcharge.
Way high.
So I mean, what you just described is at minimum a $50 buffet. Even then, you're probably looking at more.
Yeah, I think the good home style buffet you can't really go wrong with. Did you ever go to a Fur's?
Fur's is gone now.
Ooh-wee. Though you used to be able to go through there like a damn Luby's and go in. Fur's was nasty. Yeah, Fur's, like a Fur's. Fur's should be back. Yeah. Fur's should be back.
If you've never been to Fur's, it's basically Luby's, but you get to go through as many times as you want.
It's a better Luby's. So literally, like when you're going through those salads, when normally you have to make like a $3 commitment, $4 commitment, like you can say, let me get the side salad. Let me try that carrot salad. Let me try the coleslaw. Then you go through, you got to make the choice on the Luann, not at Fur's. Let me get a piece of that turkey with some dressing, throw in 3 chicken strips. You got that hamburger steak. Let me get a hamburger steak. Oh, chicken legs. Let me get a couple chicken legs. And then you just keep going. You know what the nastiest looking buffet is though? And we're talking about this because of Tytus Howard. He's got to be in shape. He's got to avoid these types of things. So this is connected. What's with these fried chicken buffets that I see? Like there's one down the guest room. I ain't going to no fried chicken buffet, brother. Like that is one of the worst ideas ever, especially like the cheap ass fried chicken buffet. What are we doing?
I saw the chat have one idea that
Oh,
I thought
Ryan's went in.
I've never been to Ryan's. What was Ryan's?
Woo-wee. Same thing as Furs.
Oh, okay.
Same concept. Yeah.
I saw someone in the chat say it. A chicken wing buffet with just bam, all the different kinds of sauces. That'd be good.
Poncho's used to go in. I don't know if I don't know if it's still bringing it. Poncho's was sick.
If you could modernize Poncho's, you'd crush. You'd crush.
Because I don't even think it's that expensive. You just have the enchiladas ready. And the reality is, let's just be real. My favorite Mexican places, like I know what the dealio is, like El Gallo out here on Gessie. Shout out to that family. What a great hey, best cheese enchiladas, fajita enchiladas in the game, El Gallo. As far as authentic Mexican food, family, everything. I think Roger Clemens was a big frequent goer there. My daughter loves it. El Gallo all day. But those enchiladas are ready, man. Like they make them like that's just that stuff's coming out in like 4 or 5 minutes because it's ready to go. So just throw it up there like at a nice Poncho's. Sign me up.
I also, just in the back of my mind, I thought about this. What about an Italian food buffet where you have the different pasta shapes, the different pasta sauces, the different proteins you could add in? It's just an idea.
That's a lot. Wags on the soup says, what does Cody use in his hair? All love.
I use
coconut oil.
No, it's called Ocean Breeze shampoo and conditioner. It's like $2 at Walmart.
Wag says Papa's not bad, just overpriced. My favorite barbecue spot's Truth, probably. Although the place we went to with Kunk that had that soup was good.
Truth is very good. Fegis is what you're talking about over there in Spring Branch.
Ooh-wee.
Very good. The thing with barbecue is like everybody does something really well, and so you kind of have like multi favorites.
Evan says Landry and Stoots, cereal before milk or milk before cereal. You got to go the cereal before the milk. You don't pour the because you got it because it's going to flow up. You don't put the cereal in after.
Yeah, cereal before milk, and then after I've gotten through all the cereal, maybe I'll pour some additional cereal in the already milk.
Yeah, that Buddha dude, their whole soup and all that, they just bring it, man.
Mm-hmm.
People saying Pinkerton's is good too. So the Texans signed Cam Robinson. To put a bow on that, not a good player, probably better than what they had. Changes plans in the draft. Perhaps we'll do a simulation. We'll also get a grasp of what's going on with the AFC South shortly, but just kind of beggars can't be choosers and kind of a stopgap. Still no long-term plan on the line, but at the very least, it's a make do. It's a make do.
Gave themselves another option and added, some potential options elsewhere on the line. So that's what they did.
So today, our day started with a little bit of a press conference. Derek Stingley, the man of few words, didn't say much at his press conference. A little bit disappointed we didn't get a little Gardner Johnson presser. We were talking to a member of the Texans staff on the way out of the press conference, and he said, "Why did y'all need this? Y'all know Sting ain't going to say shit." And I said, "Well, you're right, but that was what they gave us. I really would have preferred a Gardner Johnson press conference because I feel like he would have said shit." He said, "No, that's probably pushing it a little too far because that would be too much for y'all." But despite all that, and I thought the quote from Derek Stingley when asked how he celebrated the contract, he just said, "Just went and ate some crawfish. That's about it." I thought that was the quote of the presser, and I thought that was very Stingley-ish.
That's how you know he got paid. He was able to afford crawfish.
But I thought that was good. But I actually walked out of this, and maybe this is just because I'm the podium critic, and I want you to tell me if I'm getting ahead of myself. I actually did a video on this, but it was when the Cam Robinson news broke. So, well, kind of ripped that up. But I actually feel like this presser was actually very symbolic. I think it was a very symbolic press conference. And the reason why is because Derek Stingley and Nico Collins are the first two guys from the Nick Caserio era that were brought in to be core members of this franchise, and they got paid handsomely And as you really try to crank things up and increase expectations, those are going to be the guys. Those are the guys that you look to. Like when you walk into the locker room and you're a young guy, you look to the vets who have gotten where you want to get. And your goal whenever you're a young guy is you want to win and you want to get the second contract. And for a while, the first guy you would look to would be Landry Tunsil. And I'm not sitting here saying whether this is a calculated thing or whether it's just the way it is, but from this point forward, now Derek Stingley is the guy that kind of embodies where you want to be, what this organization wants. And unlike Landry Tunsil, he's not a holdover from a previous regime. He's a guy that Nick Caserio brought in at the very beginning, and now he is kind of that guy. So I think it was kind of symbolic of the next phase. And if you also calculate that Tunsil left, John Weeks left, who was someone that we kind of held on to as like kind of holding on to the past, it's kind of broken free. And we've kind of started a new era with what action by example actually means. Because Landry Tunsil used to be the example of that from an individual perspective. But I think this was kind of like a symbol that now it's Derek Stingley time. And Derek Stingley is kind of that guy. So I kind of got that feel. I kind of got a little bit of symbolism walking out of that press conference, despite the fact we unsurprisingly didn't get a ton of words.
It does fit. And if you're pointing to a guy that in his NFL career up to this point has done basically every single thing right, Derek Stingley's it. The injuries, okay, he battled back through them, fought back. When he came back from that injury in 2023, he was one of the best players on the field once he got back. He hasn't missed a game since he got back from that. And, I asked him about the injuries, and he's like, sometimes out of your control. It wasn't my preparation. He's like, I did the work. I got ready. The staff, kind of helps me get ready to avoid those things. And, he's played 30 straight games now. He's kept his head down. He never said, I want to be the highest paid. I want to do this. I want to do that. And he bounced back from poor results early on, the injuries being the poor results, and played really well. And the Texans showed him a tremendous amount of belief in him. And now you can point to that for the upcoming contracts, which are CJ Stroud, Will Anderson. Hey, keep doing what you're doing. Keep being you. Keep getting better. Take your game to the next level. And we're going to take care of you, because those two guys, Nico and Stingley, we did that for them. And then it just kind of keeps permeating down the list. Kamari Lassiter and Kalen Bullock and anybody else on the team. Okay, you do your job. You perform well. You continue to get better. We'll reward you.
Yep. And that's just kind of where they're at. D'Amico did seem a little busy at the press conference, and now we know why, because shortly after that, we got the Cam Robinson news. So
hey,
there
Cam,
you go.
What are you eating? No, put that down. We're bringing you to Houston. All right, Nick, you call Tytus. You let him know.
Zach Rose says we need a buffet for some of that devil's lettuce.
I don't know how that would work, but I feel like Landry could come up with it.
That feels like it would be a lot. Wags again. Does Tytus feel like a chicken on hot plate?
Like him playing a bunch of different positions now, it does feel like you've kind of microwaved them a little bit.
Can we get a clip of Tytus taking the ball from CJ?
I never want to see that again.
Yeah, I never want to see that. The explanation was even worse than the action. We'll say that. But
the off to the side to Aaron Wilson explanation?
Yes. You also kind of now have, and are we going to hear from Caserio before the draft? Is that planned or?
Yes, I believe every general manager is required to have a pre-draft press conference.
Okay, so that will be the first time we hear them talk about Gardner Johnson and Tunsil and all that. So it just kind of all gets lumped. Although the owners' meetings, we'll hear some stuff.
The next time someone from the organization will talk about these players, it'll be D'Amico Ryans at the owners' meetings.
Okay. Be interesting to hear what he has to say, although I don't know that he's going to say.
Well, he's got to He's going to have to explain what he likes about these guys. If Tytus is a tackle or a guard, and his answers or non-answers will give you a clue on how they feel in some of these guys.
Speaking of Caserio, on a scale of headset and hands off, what do you think Nick Caserio's role is in this new offense? Because at first when he got here, it was, he was wearing the headset in New England and this is the system. And why is he wearing the headset? And then he kind of took his hands off the offense because it wasn't his system. And Bobby Slowick was here to run that offense with D'Amico Ryans. Where's Caserio's role? Do you anticipate perhaps a more increased role in being a resource for the offense? Where do we see this? Because I think the role is definitely increased with bringing in Nick Caley. I don't think he's going to he might be on I don't think he'll be on the headset, but Tom Brady, Josh McDaniels, and Bill Belichick liked him on the headset. So it's not the craziest thing, but where does Nick Caserio's role go? And do you agree that Nick Caserio's role has probably increased, or maybe I don't know how to say it, like his desire to be more involved probably increases with Nick Caley, especially after you failed, because he's got to figure that out.
Well, I would say one thing about Nick Caserio having experience with Nick Caley and perhaps having an understanding to a deeper degree of what they're going to do on offense, it keeps him from having to double check his work. Because if he was out there trying to find players for Bobby Slowick's system, the offense that they previously were running, he probably had to go through and recheck things with D'Amico Ryans, with Bobby Slowick. Hey, am I on the right path with this guy? Is this the right type of guy we're trying to bring in? Now, there's some built-in knowledge of what Caley would like and what Cole Popovich would like. And so I think there's a little bit less double check my work, a little bit more autonomy on going out there and still acquiring things that work for this offense. I still feel like damn near everything on defense runs through D'Amico.
Oh yeah. I mean, and it should. Like, why would you even care?
Like, it's just really got to be like, D'Amico says, I want X, and Caserio says, we can afford it. So boom, let's do it. Like, but for offense, as long as the double check of, hey, does it keep me from doing something defensively? As long as you get a thumbs up on that, it feels like Caserio, Caley and company just run that thing sort of independent of D'Amico's, defensive approach.
Yeah. And props to Caserio for stepping away, like stepping off. But now it's like, okay, we're kind of doing a little bit of a hybrid thing. And maybe Nick Caserio's role is hybrid. Maybe it's a hybrid between the early time and now. Maybe kind of the Caserio role becomes kind of a hybrid, as it seems like they've kind of gone New England, D'Amico / McVay, Shanahan type of thing. Maybe Caserio's role is just kind of in between that as well. Maybe there's some in between there. Nolan.
Every day it's just me and a pile of iron.
Not Nolan Ryan. Nolan I says, hello from a Texans fan living in San Diego. Stay classy, San Diego. I've been listening to you guys for months and have subscribed to all the channels. Love the content y'all put out. Keep up the good stuff. We appreciate you for rolling. We are always on the scene. We're always in the mix. We've both been big voices in this market for a while, and we are embracing the digital age and loving every second of it. And stories like that make it even more fun. So shout out to Nolan. Shout out to the West Side.
Thank you for the kind words, Nolan.
Thank you very much for the kind words. Thank you very much for the kind words. And Cody Stoots. All right. So I think
was that supposed to repeat everything you said, or just, I'm not going to say nothing, but I don't need to have some sort of soliloquy about how great Nolan's comment was.
No, I'm just saying thank you very much from Cody Stoots. Keeping it moving.
It's genuine. I wasn't blowing smoke.
No, I know. Gotcha. Okay. Very nice. Next, this exercise. I thought you would enjoy this. I feel like you've just kind of gotten to where now, I feel like because I kind of hike my leg on some of your draft activity and your draft tendencies, now whenever I suggest something draft wise, I just feel like you just naturally just piss on it, even if it's like a really good idea. And I was really excited about this. And I told Cody, hey, we should do this today. And this was before the Cam Robinson news broke. Just really can't like, there's the romanticized take that I have from Stingley, but it's not like something that you talk about for the whole time. And I threw this at Stoots and he just completely rolled his eyes at it through the phone. Just complete disrespect. But now I think you're on board with this.
Yeah, I had to go do some homework, get ready for it.
So we have, because it's easy for us to talk about the teams in the division and where they're at, but we are going to do an exercise, a mind exercise, if you will, which is even more significant now because Cam Robinson is here. An AFC South, first 2 days of the draft, mock draft with all the teams, so we can get a grasp of the opportunity that the teams that are trying to dethrone the Texans as AFC South champs, the opportunity that they have to improve their football teams.
Yeah, so 3 rounds, the Titans picks, the Jaguars picks, the Colts picks, and of course the Texans picks. And the Texans one kind of changes drastically now. And I got a hunch we may be better at this than the Titans guys.
Yeah, I think we might be, but I think pick 1 is very obvious with the Titans.
So you want to get this thing started and let's go?
Let's get started.
All right.
You're going to take Cam Ward. You got to go down a little bit. My goodness.
Where is Cam? Cam Ward's the 21st ranked player in Pro Football Focus.
Pro Football Focus hates these quarterbacks, man.
They do hate the quarterbacks. That is true.
They hate these quarterbacks.
That is true. So Cam Ward's the number 1 pick.
Despite being the number 21 ranked quarterback, which, by the way, I do feel like I don't think too many Texans fans are shaking in their boots at the thought of Cam Ward going to Tennessee at all.
No.
Like, it's not even Jaden Daniels. Like, if you were skeptical last year, it was like, well, he did look pretty good in college. Does that translate? I think that was the question. So now we go to 5 with Jacksonville. Your boy McMillan is getting a lot of hate. I saw Steve Smith kind of said that he didn't think he thought he was overrated and didn't play the way he looked.
This is the beauty of social media. I saw the same clip. Somebody sent it to me. It was like, man, Steve Smith's really ragging on Tetero McMillan, your guy. And I go, yeah. Did you see Steve Smith's rankings? And they're like, no, where'd they have him? 2. They had him as the second best wide receiver in the draft.
Yeah.
So like Steve Smith goes out there, he gives you the good and the bad of everybody.
Yeah.
And he still likes McMillan. He just doesn't see him in the same way that everybody else sees.
And his number 1 was
Golden, right?
the man who visited the Texans today, Matthew Golden. Will he be on the board for the Texans, though? That is a question. With the Jags, they've hinted a lot at potentially going D-line, but I just feel like Tyler Warren is a real possibility here.
I would tell you that Tyler Warren, the Penn State tight end, and Ashton Genty, the running back from Boise State, are both very big possibilities.
Okay, so where are we going here?
You and I feel like we're on to the Jaguars early, and so I'm with you. I kind of want to take Tyler Warren here.
All right, let's give them Tyler Warren.
Are you Baselli and I'm the kid, or am I Baselli and you the kid?
You can be Baselli. You're the king of the offseason, so you can be Baselli.
All right, so Tyler Warren here. Now a little bit of a wait.
Texans version. What?
Sit down and shut up, kid.
Now we get to the Colts. And the Colts. So what do we have go here? Now we get to the Colts.
They just spent $20 million on a safety, so can't imagine
they're not doing that.
They drafted an edge defender last year.
Yes, they did.
So not doing that. They could go defensive tackle to pair with DeForest Buckner. I tell you what they really need to do here in Indianapolis.
I could see them going tight end, but I don't know.
They need to draft Colston Lovely is what they need to do.
Yeah, I think so too. And they've really emphasized the lack of tight end production in Indianapolis, like at a crazy level. Like it seems like it's like one of the first 3 questions Ballard gets asked about every time he goes up there. So I'm with you.
I would draft Colston Loveland if I was the Colts.
I would too. So I think we have 2 tight ends in the AFC South and a quarterback go, as the Texans will be awaiting to see kind of how stuff falls their way. By the way, did you see MJD's running back rankings?
Maurice Jones-Drew?
Yeah.
No, who did he have at the top for running back? Genty?
He had Genty. He said Genty's the best guy that he's ever scouted. And he said he started scouting in depth in 2016. But guess where Omarion Hampton was?
2.
7.
Okay, won't be walking at that list.
Hit him at 7. All right, so the Texans here. Walker right before. God, with the I think D'Amico would have been tempted had Walker been on the board. I'll be honest with you. Kelvin Banks is gone.
These 4 picks. These 4 picks right here before the
4
Texans.
most popular names, perhaps.
Why? Wow,
that hurts.
Those 4.
That
picks
one hurts right there.
Simmons is a tackle option, especially if you needed him to come back from the injury a little bit. That hurts.
So you kind of look smart for having the Cam Robinson safety net here early on. That wasn't the intention here. It's just kind of the way that things go. But you kind of look smart now. But man, that is a painful look right there.
Yeah, those are 4 players I'd have been very comfortable with.
No Golden, no Ibuka, wide receiver. You kind of feel like you're in wide receiver no man's land.
Unless you love Luther Burden.
Which you do. Do you want to take him?
I don't love Luther Burden that much. I like him. I don't love him. He was not super productive in a bad Tigers offense in 2024. He was awesome in 2023. They were a much better football team. He can play outside. He can play inside. I'm not beholden to a wide receiver. To me, it's Burden. It's Burden or Gray Zabel. This is where Caserio would get on the phone and try to move back. We didn't make any sort of declaration on trades allowed, trades not allowed. And then there's a lot of defenders, and they've spent so much on defense. I mean, you go Tyler Booker. You go guard. You got 2 guards and a wide receiver.
Let's just take the guard.
Which one? You want Zabel?
You can pick between Zabel and Booker. I think they would take Booker, but
I think they would take Booker as well. Gray Zabel, lesser competition. They've drafted 1 non-power 5 guy in Nick Caserio's time, and that was when UH was non-power 5. They drafted Tank Dell.
Jesse saying trade back on the soup. Shout out to Jesse F.
I mean, are we doing trades for the Texans?
Nah, we won't trade back. You got to make a pick here.
All right, so I believe the Texans would draft Tyler Booker, and I believe.
Does anyone want to trade up for Shedeur Sanders, who's 47th on the list? God, they hate the quarterbacks.
Jeez, that's terrible. That's terrible. I believe they'd take Tyler Booker, so I'm going to go Booker.
Go Booker.
All right, so there's, you want offensive linemen. You got offensive linemen. Burden to the Rams. Wow. What a spot for him.
I would have taken Omarion. I like Omarion Hampton, but hey, it's okay. He went to the Chiefs. Not that he's not going to do anything there. Don't worry. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. They get their second crack at the Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the make right. So don't be scared. Omarion Hampton just became a Chief there.
Okay, so the Titans are back on the clock. They got a quarterback in the first round.
They don't need a receiver.
I would tell you that they'd probably have a hard time passing on Scorton from A&M.
Yeah, just give him Scorton.
Okay. Just to get him at edge guy. You slam him in there with.
They got rid of Landry, so they need an edge guy. So yeah, Tennessee. The edge makes sense.
Building one hell of a defensive line there. Now this is beautiful for Jacksonville. They take Gray Zabel. They get a guard or a center, whichever one.
I think they might be thinking D-line though. There's been a lot of talk about D-line.
TJ Sanders and Tyleek Williams are 2 different kinds of guys. So you got those guys. Landon Jackson's an intriguing player. Landon Jackson would be the pick if Balky was still the guy. Ravel, the corner from Carolina.
Give him Landon Jackson. Old habits die hard.
All right, Landon Jackson.
Old habits die hard.
All right, so now a little wait here for the Texans. Or no, we got the Colts then. Forget what we're doing with the Colts. Well, the Patriots get Gray's Abel. What that? All right, Colts, they got a tight end. They probably don't need any more wide receivers. They've got
PFF's rankings are whack, by the way.
Yeah.
How do you got Besh as the 38th ranked prospect? Like, let's be serious.
He's probably not that good.
Yeah, they're losing a lot here.
Swinson, the edge from LSU would be interesting for them. Honestly, their linebackers were so crappy. Demetrius Knight probably makes a lot of sense for them as well. He's an older player, but pretty athletic, do it all type of guy.
Yeah, give him Knight.
Knight would be a guy if the Texans had moved back and had an extra second-round pick that D'Amico Ryans would be foaming at the mouth to get.
No, we're kind of in a weird spot for the Texans because I'm kind of getting thirsty for a wide receiver. So,
Restrepo would have been nice.
Look at the running backs and the receivers here.
Okay, we'll filter it by wide receiver and
what the running back role look
running
like.
back.
Running back. You got Scattaboo there.
Scattaboo, Dylan Sampson from Tennessee, Caleb Johnson from Iowa, Jalen Knoll from Iowa State. That's your speed guy. Outside, take the top off type thing. Jalen Royals, we talked about Steve Smith earlier. Steve Smith loves Jalen Royals. Savion Williams is a really interesting player. He's
too early for Neil, but I do feel like they decently like him.
Yeah, it's probably a little early for Neil and Trey Harris. You hate Scattaboo.
I like him fine. 50. I don't know, man. I'm still underestimating him a little bit.
I mean, if you're looking for just the pure runner, Caleb Johnson.
Let's look at the tight ends too.
You had tight ends in. You got Elijah Arroyo, Mason Taylor, T. Ferg from Oregon, Mason Taylor from LSU. He's a little bit more do-it-all than some of these other guys. I would pick Jalen Knoll or Jalen Royals.
Let's go with Knoll.
Okay,
another
so
Iowa State guy.
You get your speed guy on the outside, and then from like putting the puzzle together, it kind of works now.
Not gonna lie, Abuka and Golden going picks before kind of really.
I would have thought
all over this draft.
I would have thought the Texans would have got a nice swing at either one of those. So the Jaguars back on there. We got him Tyler Warren. We got him Landon Jackson.
They need.
I'd throw him an edge player now.
Yeah.
So, Kennard from Carolina or Birch from Oregon.
They already got one edge guy.
Farmer would be intriguing on the interior for him. He had a good Senior Bowl. Farmer's from Florida State. They could also use a running back too.
I don't know about here though. Unless they want to bring RJ Harvey home.
They lost a safety in free agency. Cisco left, right?
Yes.
You want to give him Kevin Winston from Penn State?
Sure, he's good too.
Okay, so they get a safety.
So outside of the
the Chiefs took another running back.
Oh God,
I didn't see that. Oh yeah,
they got Hampton and Sampson. Hampton Sampson. That kind of scares me while we're laughing.
That's a disgusting running back room. Oh
yeah, that scares me a little bit. It scares me a little.
So the Texans are on the clock here now.
All right, we need a receiver, man. We already got one, but Maybe don't.
Tyler Booker, Jalen Noel.
Check the running backs. God dang it.
DJ Giddens and Devin Neal. Probably a little early for your guy Blue.
Way early. Giddens is very underrated. Man, the running back. You've crashed out of the running back market, man. Now, tight end. Mason Taylor's there.
Mason Taylor feels like a prototype for them.
Yeah, Mason Taylor, come on down.
A little bit of a blocker, a little bit of a receiver.
Football background.
Dad's Jason Taylor, the Hall of Fame defensive lineman. You know, Caserio's already got the statement prepared. Well, his father was a Hall of Fame football player. We had to deal with him in the AFC East.
Bring him in. Mason Taylor. Man, this draft sucks.
All right, so the Colts got Colston Loveland, Demetrius Knight. Could probably use an interior guy. Could use an edge guy. They're going to take Jonah Savanaia.
Okay. They always got to take some sort of
Offensive lineman. Yep. All right, so a little bit of a wait here for the Texans. They're going to have to – the Jags got Tyler Warren and his teammate Kevin Winston. They also got an edge guy.
They need a back.
Okay. They got to steal Devin Neal from you?
Yeah, give him Neal.
This is just an exercise in punishing the Texans.
Yeah, this sucks.
So the Texans draft so far is Tyler Booker, Jalen Noel, Mason Taylor. And Landry's ready to pitch a fit.
No. This is not great.
I mean,
this is not great.
You want to go with another offensive lineman, you can. You got
might as well go with
Purdue,
Tate Ratledge.
If you wanted to get a tackle.
Makuba's nice, dude.
Yeah, but if Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was done after a year, I'd say yes, but he's got 2 years.
He's there, yes. No.
Tez Johnson, if you want to rerun the Tank Dell situation back. I'm going with a guard or Bo from Purdue.
Yeah, I would just go with Ratledge.
Boy, I don't like that draft.
It's not great. But that's what happens when you're at 25. You're kind of in that no man's land. So
those 2 wide receivers coming off
hurts.
That hurt.
And Banks.
Those 2 wide receivers, Banks and Walker.
If PFF gives it an F, that means it's an A because their ratings suck.
Well, they don't rank it because we picked 4 teams.
Yeah,
but
well, there you go.
The Texans got Booker, Noel, Taylor, and Ratledge.
Not great.
Not
loving it.
Not my favorite mock draft ever.
Not loving it, but hey.
Should have traded down, damn it.
Yeah, trade down. In that situation, trade down. Hashtag, especially if Shador Sanders is there. Trade down. Someone fall in love with him.
Even if you're just getting like a little bit extra, just to get the top of the second round.
All right, final question before we get out of here. We appreciate everyone for coming through the big news. Cam Robinson, 1-year deal up to $14.5 million. So the Texans have another tackle option. Appreciate y'all for coming through on this. Final question. Derek Stingley said he celebrated becoming a very rich man by eating crawfish. What is a celebratory food?
Ooh.
Steak, right? Nice steakhouse.
That was the first thing that came to my mind was go get a big steak, traditional steakhouse, waiter that knows the menu in and out, recommends you 2-3 different sides, get you a big Caesar salad to get warmed up.
Yeah, it's steak for sure.
Maybe throw some grilled shrimp on the side.
Yeah, steak, surf and turf, lobster, hearing all that, steak and lobster. Yeah, when you add the lobster, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Like it ain't you add the lobster, something happened, or you're just showing off for the folks. So there you go. Man, that draft sucked, but you know what?
I didn't love it. I probably like Noel more than some. I understand Iowa State receivers have had some really iffy performances in the NFL.
Are you starting to feel like McMillan might not be the first receiver taken?
When we're considering Hunter a corner?
Isn't that what he's going to play?
I think there are teams that like Golden a lot more than they like McMillan.
Yeah, and if you're just tuning in, he did visit the Texans today. So
Matthew Golden visited the Texans.
Yes, he did. So
I would say this draft feels like there's a Golden level player, a Tet McMillan level player, a Emeka Egbuka level player, and a Luther Burden level player. Feels like those guys frequently come up. Last year, there's not a Marvin Harrison Jr. every year. There's not a Malik Neighbors every year. But
it kind of feels like there is, though.
Well, there's not this year.
No, I know this is a rare. It's really freaking weird that it feels like for the last 6-7 years, we've been saying, man, every wide receiver is always loaded with, or every draft is loaded with wide receivers. In the year that the Texans probably need one very badly, that's not the case.
It's very
once those first three guys go off, you feel, and someone after those first three guys is going to end up being really, really good. And we might look back on this like it happens every year, but it's depressing.
Yeah, it feels very on and off. This is an off year. Last year was an on year. 2023 from a first round standpoint, I like Jackson Smith and Jigba, but I didn't like a ton of those other guys.
Yeah, and 27 is also going to be one of the best wide receiver drafts of all time.
2022, obviously loaded. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Drake London was really good. Jameson Williams has finally come along. 2021 was disgusting. Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. 2020 is pretty good too. Yeah, more often than not, it's loaded. This is a down year.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. At 25, normally you're okay, you're gonna get something, and you're still going to, just not there.
Now I gotta look at 2026 wide receiver rankings.
2027 is the one where you have Smith, Ryan Williams, all these guys. 2027 is the one. But you might have the top two picks being wide receivers in 2027. Very possible.
So I'm just taking a gander at 2026's early big board. Not a lot of household names just yet. So these guys are going to have to.
No, that can happen quickly, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
That can happen quickly.
Yeah. You could have 3 in the top 5 or 6 there in 2 years, because you got a Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. You've got Ryan Williams at Alabama. And
Ryan Williams just got a nail polish deal, though. He dropped on my board.
And then the kid at Auburn's a freak, too. They just couldn't get him the ball. His name escapes me.
Yeah, you'll be saying a different college probably by the time he's there. He'll probably be like a Longhorn or a Georgia Bulldog or USC Trojan.
Oh yeah, no, I'm with you.
Yeah, by the time Auburn's changing coaches, he'll be something else. That he has junior year Sark written all over him.
Cam Coleman is the kid's name.
Yes,
Cam Coleman.
He has
a freak.
He's gonna be a Longhorn.
It would not surprise me if Cam Coleman goes ahead of Ryan Williams in a couple of years.
Someone's bringing up Ryan Wingo. They got to start giving him the ball first. I mean, God, you don't have to threaten. You don't have to tell me about Ryan Wingo. I don't want to get started on it. I lost Cody money on Ryan Wingo, so a lot of times, I think 5 times maybe.
Yeah, Wingo's dead to me till further notice.
His over-under in yards is 20. It's unacceptable. And then they started we'll move on. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Subscribe, like, right along. Always remember, on an active day or an inactive day, we're always here. And when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.